You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on AngryMarks.com with Peter H. and Stevie J. Find them on Twitter at HardcoreCDN and at AngryMarks. And now, for all the news, reviews, and interviews in mixed martial arts, it's time for Glove Up or Shut Up from AngryMarks.com.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Glove Up or Shut Up right here on AngryMarks.com. My name is Peter H. and I'm joined once again by my co-host from Omaha, Nebraska, Stevie J.
Whether you were in Las Vegas or in Brazil, it was an eventful weekend for mixed martial arts.
Positive or negative?
I think a little of both.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with the good with the UFC show. We'll come back after that with some controversial stuff in the World Series show. We're going to preview this weekend's fight night, and we got lots of news to get to.
Yes, but by now, I think the entire world has seen the Ronda Rousey fight. I believe Dave Meltzer of Wrestling Observer estimated that 20 million people, legally or illegally, had watched all 34 seconds of that fight.
Stevie, our intro was longer than the fight.
Indeed it is. This is what people should expect from Ronda Rousey by now. Do you know what she does? Do you know how she does it? If you watch her, you do. And if this was your first time, you just caught on to the hype train.
Do you think it's a case where she'll be undefeated for the rest of her career to the point where she's the big fish in the small pond, and that this division, it really shows the weakness of the division because there's her and there's everybody else. She's the Tiger Woods right now of that division.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't use Tiger Woods as an example because he's fallen off a cliff.
Okay, but at his prime, you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, second of all, nobody said that the UFC had a weak light heavyweight division just because John Jones was sitting on top of it. It doesn't mean that everybody else sucks. It just means that one guy is better than everybody else. And Ronda Rousey is better than everybody else. That doesn't mean Miesha Tate and all the other people beneath her suck. It just means Ronda will be the champ for a long time. I mean, nobody said that the middleweight division sucked when Anderson Silva dominated it. It's the same thing.
Now, do you believe the comparisons we're hearing with her and Mike Tyson?
I, again, don't know if I find that to be a completely accurate comparison because Mike Tyson has had a troubled life, and yeah, Ronda Rousey has had a troubled life too, but Ronda has rebuilt herself from that, and Mike Tyson, once he lost that fight to Buster Douglas, things just kept spiraling out of control for him. You know, he had a prison sentence, he bit somebody's ear off, Mike Tyson's life has been a maelstrom of controversy pretty much from the day he lost the World Heavyweight title.
What was that stat that we were saying? Last 3 title fights, including this one, have lasted a total of 64 seconds?
Yep, that's absolutely right.
Jeez. It's just amazing that 3 fights in just over a minute, and
I don't think she's had a title fight in the last, 3 to 4 that's gone more than 66.
Yeah, it's the Miesha Tate fight.
Right, that was the last one that did.
Yeah, it's funny when people were saying, 30 seconds, is it going to go longer? I think we even talked about that on the show, and it's like, well, it did last longer than 30 seconds by, a couple more seconds, but still, it lasted less than a minute.
At this point, the sports books need to add betting lines for that because nobody is betting on the underdog in her fights. It's a ridiculous proposition. Even when you make the odds 2,000 to 1, which is what they closed at,
yeah,
you still can't get people to lay money on her opponents. You're going to have to start taking bets on how long the fight's going to be, whether it's under or over a minute, whether she wins by knockout or armbar. You're going to have all these parlays on Ronda Rousey's fights because nobody's going to bet on her opponent. They're going to bet on her, and it's how she wins that they're going to bet on.
Somebody asked me on a private message on Twitter, I'm not going to say who it was, but they said, was that an early stoppage?
And
I was like, that's exactly what I said, what fight were you watching? You're by saying that, you qualify as a UFC judge sometimes. You know that.
Yeah, Cecil Peoples online too.
Jeez. It's like, no, McCarthy was right there. I mean, he couldn't get any closer without getting hit.
And
He
look
was
at
right
Ronda
there.
Rousey's face. I mean, it's not like she
Yeah.
didn't get touched. They were trading. She knocked Correa down. She finished her. They were just going toe to toe.
Yeah. And,
So much for strategy. They just pretty much bull rushed
strategy?
each other.
What strategy? It's not getting hit.
Well, of course, there was Ronda Rousey's pronouncement that she was going to make it a long fight. She was going to punish her. No, she made it a quick fight and she punished her.
It was personal, and personal fights usually don't end that quickly, or if they do, it's like a one, you know what I mean? Like, I thought it'd be more of a fight in Korea, but, I mean, we got Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey. Was it the trilogy fight, or is this number 4?
It's trilogy, I believe. But
Trilogy, yeah.
all I can say is personal doesn't even begin to describe it because she's called Rowdy Ronda Rousey because Roddy Piper gave her the nickname with his blessing. So she cut a post-fight promo and talked about how she hoped her dad and him were watching the fight together, and she was emotional, and the fans watching it had to be emotional with her. It was tremendous.
Yeah, that was some, pretty sad news in the world of pro wrestling just days before this fight.
Yeah, but I can't think of a more fitting way to salute him than to have Rowdy Ronda Rousey go out there, completely destroy somebody, and then mention him afterward. That's the tip of the cap to him.
It would have been funny if she came out in a Hot Rod t-shirt and it killed, but I know she can't with the Reebok deal in place.
No, although I did hear something funny about the fight kits.
What's that?
Apparently, as long as you wear what's in your fight kit, you can add anything you want to it. Like, if you wear your fight jersey and your fight shorts and you want to come out in a lucha mask, they don't care as long as you're wearing your Reebok stuff.
Well, we saw that, didn't we? In one of the fights?
I believe so. I'm trying to remember if there was.
It was a women's fight. The other women's fight there.
Oh, yeah, that's right, on this particular card. But I'm saying that's actually been confirmed as official policy now.
Okay, so lucha mask, and you can't. What was the other one? You can't like
you can't wear
spray
somebody
tan
else's stuff.
No, you can't like spray tan the logo on your body.
No, we figured that out 3 or 4 shows ago. But
Yeah.
that's not what I'm talking about here. It's like Conor McGregor. You can't wear Conor McGregor's fight kit if you're not Conor McGregor. They don't let you do that because apparently Filthy Tom Lawler wanted to, and they told him no.
That would have been funny.
His attitude about it seemed correct to me. Like, hey, it's free advertising for this stuff. You want to sell it? Let me wear it.
Alright, so we should talk about the other fights on this card, but just to recap, one-sided ass kicking. Ronda Rousey wins in less than a minute, and no one's that surprised. However, at the weigh-ins, there was a very, intense stare down, I guess you could say.
When is Ronda Rousey not involved in an intense stare down?
No, but my point is Korea said, don't cry. And then after the fight was over, after the knockout happened, Rousey went over to her, like leaned over as she was just trying to get her faculties and try to get like what the hell just happened. And Rousey just said, hey, don't cry. And just smiled and walked away. And was like, oh boy.
Well, that's not the only parting shot that she has. And I do mean parting literally because she is leaving her title belt in Brazil. Apparently, Betch Correa said the people of Brazil deserve this title. So Ronda Rousey's response to that is she's going to give it to a charity in Brazil and let them keep the title. She's going to do what Betch Correa couldn't.
Well, it's like an autographed UFC 190 championship belt.
I think she's leaving her actual belt they presented to her, and UFC will just give her another one.
Oh, wow.
So,
is there a UFC gym in Brazil?
If there is, that might be where it goes. But I think she really wants it to go to like a hospital or a charity or an orphanage or something where it can raise awareness for a cause.
Put it in the hospital in the broken arm wing.
Ooh, ouch.
Rename it the Ronda Rousey armbar wing of the hospital. If you break your arm, you go in the Ronda Rousey wing.
No, in all seriousness, this really is a magnanimous gesture on her part.
Absolutely.
It'll do some good.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Speaking of doing good, this was a really good fight. I wasn't sure what year I was in when I was watching Shogun Hua fight Nogueira there.
Now, do you agree with the crowd booing at the end? Do you think the wrong guy won the fight?
What do I always say, Stevie?
Never leave it to the judges.
If you leave it to the judges, you have no right to complain. The fans, they're very vocal on who their favorites are, but at the end of the day, if your fighter decides to leave it to three guys at cage side as opposed to, finishing it in the cage in the 15 minutes,
So it sounds like you think the judges got this one wrong.
I have to watch this fight like 10 times. I would probably go 6-4, or maybe even 5-5. It was that close in my opinion.
I think there's at least 2 rounds that could have gone either way, so crowd was not in favor of this, but with close rounds that could go either way. I don't have a problem with it. I feel like either person getting their hand raised would have been fair.
I don't think we'll rematch these fighters anytime soon.
I think they're both nearing the tail end of their career, as we'll talk about later with Big Nog. So, yeah, I don't really have a problem with it. Let Shogun get the win. He can move on. Rematching them would not benefit anybody.
No. I want you to briefly touch on the 2 tough final fights we saw next.
Well, we had the lightweight division and the bantamweight division from Tough Brazil, the finalists in each of those 2 categories. The more exciting of the 2 fights was Franca and Bruno, because Franca pulled it out late in the 3rd round with a rear naked choke, 14 seconds left to go. So, congratulations to him. And the other one was pretty one-sided with, in the bantamweight contest, Vieira defeating Lopez by unanimous decision. And a lot of people were complaining during this fight about how long the main part of the pay-per-view was. So, this really didn't win over any fans.
No, absolutely not. But, it's exciting to fight in front of your hometown crowd, and, I agree that Franca choke was, like, at that point of the fight, I think he knew how much time he had left to play with there, so he probably gave that little bit extra, tighten it just a little bit more because he wants to end that fight.
He did not want to leave it to the judges. No.
No, he wanted to win that fight in the time frame allotted, and he definitely did. But man, Bruno, give him a contract, man. That was a great fight.
Yeah, exactly. I think both of these guys really built up the momentum for the main part of the card. I would say they each earned a contract.
Absolutely. What about Stefan Struve and Big Nog here? And boy, this was not the fight I expected it to be.
Actually, it was exactly the winner I expected, but not exactly the way I expected. Remember, I thought that Stefan Struve would take it to the ground, and you told me that was a bad idea, and I said Big Nog was past his prime. Well, he proved that in a completely different way, because he just stood there and took a battering. At one point, Struve just blatantly ripped a kick right into his head, and he just stood there and walked forward like, what? Really?
It was like, is that all you got? Like, I'm like, how much more punishment can this guy take? He's been taking headshots for how many years now?
Yeah, after this fight, I was like, he's done. And then Dana White, post-fight presser, he's done. We're giving him an office job. I'm like, thank you. This guy doesn't need any more head trauma. He doesn't even know to fall down anymore.
No. Antonio Bigfoot Silva beat Rousimar Palhares second round, 41 seconds.
Yep, and this was the only fight that the entire Observer panel got wrong. All 9 of us all picked the Hulk, and we all F-bombed it big time.
So the Hulk got it wrong, or...
No, the panel got it wrong, and Antonio Silva got it right. And the thing that people are taking away from this fight, and I want your opinion on this, is that Bigfoot didn't look like Bigfoot. The last couple of fights we saw him, he looked slow, sluggish, could barely move. In this one, he actually seemed to have a spark. Do you think he got back on TRT in Brazil? I guess that's what I'm really asking you.
No.
It is a Brazilian commission. Maybe they let him slide on something.
I want to go to what Matt Brown said in his last fight, saying he reinvented himself. Could this be the new and improved Bigfoot?
Well, I'd say we need 2 or 3 fights against quality competition to really figure that out.
So give him a next fight. Who do you put in front of him next?
Well, let's look at the rankings right now in the top 15 and use that as our basis to guide by, because more often than not, you want to match guys up that are fairly close to each other in terms of their overall ranking. Right now, Silva is number 11, so I'd say a good fight for him would be somebody within 2 above or below him, like maybe
Overeem,
maybe Big Country.
I don't know if I want to see the Big Country against Silva. I think Overeem, I don't want to see him against Mir, who's ranked number 10. Mark Hunt, that would be an ugly fight.
I don't know, but all I can say is I really do like the idea of Bigfoot and Roy, because they were originally supposed to fight at UFC 146, so might as well, if you're not going to give that fight to the fans back then, you could still do it now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Interesting to see who they put in front of him next, but he'll definitely have another fight. It's not like this is his last fight ever, so. And I want your take on the women's fight that opened up the pay-per-view here with with a performance by one of the fighters, not the one I expected to win.
No, this was, talk about reinventing yourself. You just used that phrase a little minute ago for Bigfoot Silva, and I think that's even more appropriate here for Claudia Gadelha, because the way she got smoked by Joanna Champion, you would have thought that there was basically no way she would come back to be a force in the strawweight division, but she was on a mission to prove something here, and Jessica Aguilar was coming in ranked as one of the best in the world. Potentially, it could be a title shot if she beat the former champion, but, it didn't work out that way. It was a very one-sided fight, all in favor of Gadelha.
Now, wasn't Aguilar like one of the hottest signings the UFC had in recent memory?
She literally was the best woman that was not already signed to UFC for this division.
Now, is this just a one-off fight, or...
No, she's in for the long haul, but obviously she's not rocketing straight to the top like people thought.
But my question is, do you put a quality name in front of her for her next fight, or do you have her fight someone with a lesser record or a lesser, a lesser fighter, I should say? Well, a tomato can.
She's not actually suffering too much for the loss. I mean, right now, she's ranked number 11, which should show you that people actually respect her for going 3 rounds with the number 1 ranked women's strawweight. They're basically saying, you got beat by the better woman, but you don't suck. So I'd still give her a top 10 fight. Somebody like Marina Moroz or Paige Van Zandt, I think those would be good fights for her. And if their opponent wins, that's an even better fight for them.
I like Paige Van Zandt for that one, for sure.
Absolutely.
That's a great fight. Going to the prelims, is there anything here that caught your eye?
I think the Patrick Cummins fight is the most noteworthy out of all the prelims because, man, he didn't look like the winner in that fight.
No.
He took a beating for at least 2 rounds, and then all of a sudden in the third, he just took over, got Cavalcante on the ground, elbowed the crap out of him, and got the stoppage. Like, what a come from behind win, because you looked at him, holy cow, you talk about raccoon eyes, he had him.
Mm-hmm. Bleeding from the nose, the fight was stopped at one point to check the nose, and no, go for it, you can still fight, okay. And next round, those elbows, talk about death from above. It's like, stop hitting him, he's already dead.
Yeah, that was a very lopsided finish to what had previously been a very lopsided fight in the other direction, so tale of 2 wars, and he won the war in the end.
We had a couple of rear naked chokes as well, with Maya beating Magny and Alves beating Talib. Now,
yeah, that snaps Magny's winning streak, so that's kind of unfortunate for him.
I thought a win here would put him in the main card on the next show, but, Maya's no slouch. I mean, Maya fighting in Brazil.
Yeah, he's one
Good
of
luck
the,
to you.
and he's one of the greatest jiu-jitsu artists that has ever come along at welterweight. He's right up there among the best of the best.
Hey, about the prelims on the Fight Pass, there's one I want to talk about. That was Vitor Miranda beating Clint Hester. It's kind of surprising here with Hester losing in the second round at 238. I don't know what you do with Hester now. I mean, he got beat in, I'm not going to say it was a one-sided butt kicking, but man, that wasn't the Hester I was expecting to fight. Like, that wasn't a Hester performance. I've seen him do much better in the past.
Yeah, he did better with Dylan Andrews, with Bristol the Pistol Marunde.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's had better fights than the last two, but he is on a backward slide right now, and since this was a Fight Pass fight, he's in big trouble with this one.
Alright, let's move on to the show that happened in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino for World Series of Fighting 22. Rousimar Palhares against Jake Shields for the welterweight title.
You know what? We actually got to start with the outside the cage antics. We can't even talk about the fights yet.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about that. And, whose temper was, shown in the crowd? Like, who got really pissed off and agitated, I guess you could say?
Well, a whole bunch of people got pissed off and agitated, but
no?
the instigators...
Oh, come on, not again.
Can you... Hello?
Hello? There we go.
Alright, so, no, the instigators were multiple and were flagrant and could not be contained inside the building. They went out into the hotel lobby and the bar, and this continued. And if you haven't already seen the videos, go to MMAmedia.com because I did an article about it all. But basically, the Nurmagomedov family and the Diaz family were all there to represent various people. The Diazes are friends with Jake Shields, so they were there to watch him fight. And of course, Abubakar Nurmagomedov was in a opening card fight for the main broadcast on NBC Sports. And as it turns out, I learned something from a friend of mine. Habib is not actually his brother. They are billed as brothers, but he's actually a cousin. They grew up together in the same house, were raised by the same parents, so they treat each other like brothers, but technically speaking, they're not brothers. So
just call him Von Erich.
Yeah, well, tighter than Von Erich even, because there were some really phony Von Erichs in the Von Erich family if you follow World Class, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about two people who are blood related and grew up like brothers. So, actually, I'd say the Guerreros would probably be a better example if you want to go pro wrestling.
Better.
Anyway, what happens is there are some testy words exchanged in the crowd between Nate Diaz and Habib Nurmagomedov, and obviously it's contentious because they're both UFC lightweights. They both want to work their way up to the cream of the crop and fight the best, but Habib is much higher up in the rankings, and Nate is kind of an afterthought right now. But Nate is, as Diaz brothers are wont to do, instigating and saying things to Habib, and Habib is saying things back to him. They start scuffling, punches get thrown, they get separated, and then Nick Diaz throws a bottle of beer at him. And it flares up again, and World Series Fighting Vice President Ali Abdelaziz has to get between them. Everybody gets ejected from the building, but they keep on fighting anyway, which has caused the Vice President to issue a lifetime ban on the Diaz brothers, saying they are no longer welcome at World Series Fighting events if they can't behave themselves.
That'll probably get changed. He'll probably drop that ban eventually, maybe put him in a suite or something, or whatever venue they're at, but
You know what?
I'm
not so sure that ban gets dropped because it's a problem now for the Nevada State Athletic Commission as well. They could, because of the antics of the fighters who were not involved in the card, they could still issue suspensions for conduct unbecoming a fighter.
Now, two things I took away from this. One, what venue actually sells beer bottles as opposed to tall boy cans or pouring in a plastic cup?
Well, when I say beer bottle, let me be clear that I can't really tell with 100% certainty on the video what was thrown. It's described as a beer bottle by some people and by other people as a glass of beer, but either way, it hits him.
Now, World Series of Fighting must have loved this promotion because they've got 2 UFC fighters outside in the crowd beating the crap out of each other. And I know I talk wrestling sometimes on this podcast, but it reminded me of when, was it TNA? Hey look, there's a WWE wrestler in our crowd right now. It's like, oh crap. No, and he got fired like 2 days later or something.
This was never shown on TV. Until...
It wasn't shown on the broadcast, you're saying.
Right. They were not even acknowledged. The only person from UFC who was even acknowledged as being there was Frankie Edgar, who was in Marlon Moraes' corner, and they're training partners, so that only makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But you gotta think World Series is loving this additional publicity.
I'm not sure they're loving anything about this. In fact, we need to get into the main event because there's a lot to not love here, and there is a lot of controversy about it.
Alright, so where do I start? Alright. Rousimar Palhares, Jake Shields for the welterweight title. The problem here, Shields was winning this fight in the first, 2 rounds?
I'd say for a round and a half, he was actually doing pretty well because he was using wrestling takedowns and controlling Palhares on the ground and not really giving Palhares any opportunity to go for his vaunted leg lock.
No. So what does he do? He decides to eye poke him multiple times.
Yeah, he just decides he's got to find some way to change the momentum of the fight, and with Shields on top and him not really able to do anything else, he just starts thumbing him in the eye every chance he gets, and Shields complains to Steve Mazzagatti about it, and at first Mazzagatti doesn't seem like he's going to do anything. Then he actually visually catches him doing it and gives him a warning. Then he catches him doing it again and stops the fight and gives him a stern warning and says, if you do it again, I'm taking a point away. And then
that second warning was bull. I mean, at what point, okay, this is your final warning now? Like, come on, man.
Well, you just cut me off at exactly the wrong point, Peter, because what I was going to say is he restarts them and Palhares immediately does it again, and instead of taking a point away, he gives him another warning. And honestly, even though I don't necessarily approve of the conduct, I don't necessarily blame Jake Shields for getting up at the end of the round and cussing out Mazzagatti. And I'm not exaggerating when I say cussing out, because he swore, he cursed, he yelled, he said, "You're not effing going to do anything," unquote.
Yeah, it reminded me, I was watching the baseball game on, I think it was Sunday, with the Kansas City Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays. First inning, guy gets hit by a pitch, and umpire gives warning to both benches. Happens again, like 2 or 3 times, and the Jays manager is like, seriously, you're not going to throw him out for that? And what does the umpire do? He throws out the Jays manager for arguing with him. It's like, but you did it again and again, and then another batter a couple innings later, another beanball, no warning. So the batter argues, tosses the other Jay out of the game. So then the next inning, the Blue Jay pitcher beans, baseball, tit for tat, right? So the Jays pitcher hits him with a pitch, and what does the umpire do? He throws the pitcher out. It's like, you're calling me out for this? Like, it was ridiculous. It's like, at what point does the referee or the umpire, it's like, practice what you preach. You know what I mean? And Mazzagatti has a track record of this. A fucking track record of this.
Well, things went from bad to worse, and this isn't exactly Mazzagatti's fault, because in the third round, they were still wrestling. Shields was trying to get a takedown. He'd gotten tagged a few times on the feet, and obviously he doesn't like that, so he's going for the takedown. He gets swept, and immediately the Kimura arm lock is on, and Jake Shields starts tapping. But
now I saw the freeze frame of this. I saw that actually that someone had a stopwatch. And how much time do you think passed here?
I'd say 5 seconds.
I think by the time Mazzagatti saw the tap and he told him, like, I don't know, it's weird to see when Shields starts tapping and when Mazzagatti...
He starts tapping right away, like, no hesitation.
Yeah. But then Mazzagatti tells him get off. It's like...
And then he doesn't let go.
He pulls.
That's where I don't blame Mazzagatti for this one, because he gets on top of Palhares, he's tapping him on the back saying, the guy tapped, let go, and he's not letting go of the Kimura. And he's holding on to it, and he's holding on, and he's getting pulled off physically. That's not Mazzagati's fault.
No, I think what I saw of the stopwatch, it was like 1.5 to 2 seconds between Mazzagatti telling him get off and him getting off. But then they show it again, and you see when Mazzagatti says stop, he cinches it up like another last pull, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But the time between Shields tapping and actual letting go of the hold, you're right, it's about 4 to 5 seconds. And once again, it's a repeat offender here. It's someone who's seen this do in the past. And this is the reason he got cut from UFC.
Right, and this is the acquiescence you give when you don't want to lose a limb or an arm or a leg. And he has destroyed several people's limbs with these kind of tactics. And the tap out is the admission, you won, I lost, let go now. You shouldn't have to wait for the referee to come over and tell you to let go. Once you tap, you let go, the fight's over.
Somebody asked me, maybe he didn't feel the tap. Can you not feel the tap if someone's tapping out? I'm sorry.
Okay, watch that replay. He is blatantly and very physically tapping.
It's not a Diaz pitter punch tapping you on the arm. This is like, ow, 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 you're gonna snap my leg, you know what I mean? And then after it finally gets let go, Shields
takes
socks
a poke
him.
at him. Yeah. He's
beautiful.
Pissed. He's legitimately and justifiably pissed about this, and he takes a swing at him. And if you look behind him to the cage door, you can see the entire Jake Shields camp trying to bum rush the cage, and there's a big beefy security guard there holding them all back as they're shoving at him, trying to get in the cage to get at Palhares.
Give that man a raise.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the problem I had was after Shields connected, Palhares looked up and did the pose where it's like, you mad, bro? And I'm like, oh, don't do that. Don't do that with the Diaz guy. No. We don't need more antics like that now.
Yeah, well, the Diaz brothers are busy with their own brawl, so.
Now, I missed the actual, an official announcement that he won the fight, but was Shields actually back to the center of the cage to get to, or did he just leave?
No, he stuck around. He had a few things to say.
Oh, and what was that?
He said, this guy is a cheater. He gouged me in the eye multiple times. The referee didn't do anything about it. It's complete crap. I don't care. I want to fight him again. I'm going to get this guy. He's dirty. If he wants to fight dirty, I'm going to fight dirty.
Now, I wonder, I know the commission assigns referees. I know that part. But can a fighter apply to the commission or a fighter request for a certain fight
actually
not
yes.
to have a referee?
Yes, Shields said this. He said, if they ever assign him to one of my fights again, I'm not taking the fight. I refuse to let this guy ever ref me again.
Which, it puts the commission in a sticky situation because if you got, say, 5 fighters, hell, say 10 fighters, we don't want Mazzagatti fighting, does that not end his professional career as a referee because nobody wants to have him ref the fight?
Well, it really won't, because even if you get several guys that are in the upper echelons of several different organizations all saying that they don't want Mazzagatti to ref, look at how many cards there are, look at how many fights there are on each card, and you're going to be watching UFC Fight Pass prelims and hearing Bruce Buffer say, and when the action begins, our referee in charge is Steve Mazzagatti. Maybe he won't be doing main events, but it won't end his career because there are way too many fights.
Well, they need to hire more referees, I think. Maybe one day, years from now, we're gonna hear, and the referee in charge, Ed in San Antonio. It won't go that far,
No, that won't happen.
Because, but they need to have more referees.
Well, maybe they do, but maybe they just need referees that are actually competent at calling things out, because there's just a gross line of either undercalling or overcalling things. And Steve Mazzagatti undercalls it, and then there are other referees, and in particular on this show, it really annoyed the crap out of me that there was one referee in particular that the moment a fighter got a takedown, he would say, let's work to improve. Okay, he just got the takedown.
Yeah.
Give him time to do something before you say work to improve. That's BS.
So a couple of notes here. One, Palhares takes home a grand total of $24,000.
Well, he would have gotten a winner's bonus, but that's being withheld pending an investigation by the World Series and the Nevada State Athletic Commission.
Now, if you want to see a photo, there's a photo floating around of Shields' eyes after the fight. you talk about, someone that was in a fight, his eyes are very swollen. It's not raccoon eyes per se, but there's definitely damage to the eyes here.
It's pretty clear evidence just looking at him what Palhares was doing. Even if you claim you didn't see it during the fight, look at Shields after the fight and you know that's what he was doing.
Now, there is rumors right now that World Series could suspend, strip of the title. There's a lot of different options they have at their discretion here.
Sepho has gone on the record and said that he believes Palhares was fighting dirty.
Alright, so now we move on to the co-main event. And Moraes versus Moraes for the bantamweight title.
Indeed, and congratulations to Marlon Moraes, not just on winning, but earning the biggest payday of the entire show. Do you know how much he got for this fight?
I didn't write it down, but it was pretty good.
$169 a second for a grand total of $140,000. $70,000 to show, $70,000 to win.
So you're gonna pay me to, for every second, $149.
69.
69, sorry. And, fight a guy who, it's a title fight, so that's cool. It's gonna be a good fight, and the choke, how many submission wrestlers, or submission specialists, I should say, do you know that love just slapping on that choke?
Well, I think anybody that can get a rear naked choke that's any good at it wants to go for it any chance they get. It's the most visually dramatic submission when you get an arm under the neck and crank on it and force a guy to give up. It's a thing that people identify with submissions.
I forget who said it, but there was a quote a fighter said where nothing more satisfying than having someone tap out to your choke.
That's pretty much it, and it would have ended either way because Moraes was pretty much ripping him apart on the feet and had rocked him, and then he jumped on for the rear naked choke. It was,
and we're talking jumped on, we're talking the last steak on the table, he was going for it.
Yeah, he wanted to make a statement and finish it in very dramatic fashion, and that's exactly what he did.
Clifford Starks beat Mike Kyle with a unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27.
Starks used wrestling very effectively in this fight, and Mike Kyle is a power striker, and that's what he's best known for, and he never really got that opportunity. Starks just used his size and used his strength, and the big cat just held him.
And Nurmagomedov beating Jorge Marino, 30-27, 30-26, and 30-26.
Yeah, it was actually that one-sided. You could have given even 30-25, and I wouldn't have had a problem with it because Moreno came in undefeated at 4-0, but let's just be fair about it and say that there's a difference between being George Moreno and being a Nurmagomedov, and the way those guys train and the way Moreno trains clearly not the same.
No. Oh God, no. And Islam Mamedov beating Jimmy Spikuza, TKO with 13 seconds left in the first round.
Yeah, I don't want to say early stoppage. I don't think it was.
It was close.
As Spikuza was getting pretty well hammered, but he might have been able to get to the second round. We'll never find out now.
It's the argument of Nacho Boy Killer against Rory McDonald with 10 seconds left. You could have, it could have been stopped. You could have let it go for a couple seconds if you knew it was that close to the end of the round. But at the end of the day, the referee is there for the fighter's safety.
Yeah. I just feel bad, and it's probably because I interviewed Spikuza, but this is a really smart guy. He's got his head in the game. He knows what he wants. He's got long-term goals, and he said he's going to stick around until he wins the title. And unfortunately, this is a setback in his quest for that.
Yeah, definitely a setback, and I'm sure we'll see him. We'll see him again in.
Well, he's a mainstay of World Series fighting. This is like his 5th fight for them, so.
Yeah, but I don't think he's going to get.
No, he won't get cut. No, he won 3 out of 4 before this, so, like I said, it's a setback, but it's not the end of his career. I'm disappointed for him because he has long-term goals that he wants to win a championship and then he wants to move on with the rest of his life and do something else other than competing in a cage. So it's just going to take him longer to get there now.
Yeah. All right, so it's up to you. Do you want to talk some news, or do you want to talk about this weekend's show in Nashville?
Well, I do want to briefly touch on one fight from the prelim card, and
Okay.
it's another person I interviewed, the Honey Bear, Jake Ewan, and he and Devin Clark were having a very competitive fight, close rounds all the way through. Third round, Jake Ewan finally got the better of him, got on the arm triangle choke, and put him out. So, some people had him behind in the fight going into the third round. I thought it was closer than that, but either way, Jake Ewan comes out on top and comes in on short notice to do it too. So he made an interesting statement after the fight saying, you know what, I took this fight because I've been looking for a fight and they needed somebody, so I stepped up. But honestly, give me a fight at 185, 205, or heavyweight. I don't care. Give me a fight next month and I'll be on that card.
I'm done with that.
It's a brassy, ballsy thing for him to say, but he is a very charismatic, ballsy guy. Just listen to my interview with him and you'll find out why.
Yep, no, absolutely. And is that on the YouTube channel?
It's on the YouTube channel, and it's also transcripted on MMAmania.com.
There you go. All right, so let's move on to the
To the Nashville card.
yeah, let's go with Nashville. You can do A or B. I think Nashville is the best choice for us right now. And the main event, OSP against Glover Teixeira. It's a good fight. I mean, it's something that
It's a
both
ranking
fighters.
fight.
Yeah, it definitely is a ranking fight. I'm not sure what the odds are for this one, but I don't know. I mean, I like both these fighters here. I don't expect it to be that one-sided for odds.
No. And right now, in the terms of rankings, when I say that, we've got Glover Teixeira at number 4 and Owen St. Preux at number 6. Pretty stable in the light heavyweight division following last weekend's show. The only really big move is Patrick Cummins moving up 4 spots to number 10. But as far as the odds go, it's a virtual coin flip. It's plus 100 for OSP, minus 120 for Teixeira. So this can go either way.
Has there been any update on John Jones?
Not that I've heard, other than that he continues to train and work out with his teammates at Jackson Winklejohn, but not that he's had a court hearing scheduled, not that he's going to be coming back anytime soon. I think that's all up in the air right now until all the legal drama plays out.
Alright, so if OSP wins here, he should leapfrog Rashad Evans.
I think that's fair.
Now, if
Teixeira
Glover
wins, he's probably still behind Gustafsson and Johnson.
he fights Bader.
No, he might move up past Bader, but he might also fight Bader. It's hard to say.
I think a Bader fight would be, a good claim if say Bader fights Glover down the road and
All right,
he
well,
wins
here,
in a decisive fashion. I mean, what point does Bader jump? You know what I mean? It's very.
let's play out the hypotheticals then based on what you're saying. Let's say that Glover Teixeira beats Owen St. Preux and proves that he deserves his ranking spot and nobody leaps up above him. And then they have a fight with Bader and Bader wins that fight and beats Glover. You're doing MMA math here by saying so-and-so beats so-and-so and so-and-so beats so-and-so. But if you want to do that kind of math, Bader would absolutely, unquestionably deserve a title shot at that point because he could have had one against Daniel Cormier. They decided that wasn't a good enough fight and they went with Gustafsson instead. But I feel like Bader would almost be an uncrowned champion at that point because he would have virtually beaten everybody other than the number one guy for a light heavyweight title shot. So they can't
Rumble Johnson, I don't know what you do with him though.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I'm just saying at some point you're going to have this situation where Johnson can't get an immediate rematch. That's not going to happen.
No.
And
No, his name's not Tate.
right, and Gustafsson either wins or loses whatever happens there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Bader, if that happens, the way you've played it out, there's no reason to keep denying Bader a title shot at that point. Whether he's...
I think if you book Bader and Glover for like a number one contenders fight, have Cormier, if he's still champion, sitting cage side, and be like, you know how Bader was trolling him at that last fight there?
Exactly.
Have Cormier do it.
Right. And then even if Bader wins boring, then there's a story to make out of it, because if he dominates Glover Teixeira in a boring fight, and Cormier comes in and calls him out on it and says, "You're boring, son. I can whip your ass all day."
Mm-hmm.
That would be fun.
Don't throw a shoe.
Yeah, don't throw a shoe, but they can make some fun out of it.
I'm not saying excitement like a Diaz fight in the crowd, but, you know, Bader and Cormier is one of those, if it's done right, it could be a good money fight.
Yeah, there is some natural bad blood between them.
So, I mean, we could see it. I'm not saying we will, but, I mean, it's almost like a running joke right now. If you're ranked number 5, you're not fighting for a while.
Yeah, I suppose it is, but we do have a co-main event that we should get back to on this Nashville card. Beneil Dariush and Michael Johnson.
Yeah, speaking of rankings fights.
Indeed, indeed. In the lightweight division, these are two of your top guys, because Michael Johnson is number 5 and Beneil Dariush is number 12. Actually moving up one spot this week.
Mm-hmm. I think if Dariush wins here, and it's a big if, he definitely goes in the top 10.
He might even move all the way up to like number 7 ahead of Benson Henderson.
Oh, that, I don't know if he goes that high.
Okay,
but
he's beating the 5th ranked guy in the world. You gotta do something with him at that point. And Benson Henderson's kinda on the backslide. Plus, he seems to want to fight at welterweight these days.
If Johnson win here, does he go up?
That's a tough proposition. I'd actually like to see the rankings brief from UFC to see how they advise us on this one. But I can't see him moving up a whole hell of a lot. Maybe he moves up above Eddie Alvarez, but he's not moving up against Habib, Donald, or Anthony, so.
No. I think Eddie is the only move there, and if that happens, then you're like, great, I moved up one spot in this traffic jam. It's like that scene from Office Space where he looks over and the guy in the walker is passing him because no one's moving ahead of him.
Well,
you're stuck. I mean, until the Cerrone Nurmagomedov fight happens, he'll be stuck at number 5 or number 4.
Right. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and that Cerrone Nurmagomedov fight, awesome.
Yeah, just keep Nurmagomedov out of trouble. Don't let him get in any more cage side incidents between them.
No more beer bottles, please.
Or whatever it was that was thrown. It was a beer of some kind.
Alright, what's
third on tap for this card?
Oh, I have it here. It's Sam Alvey and Derek Brunson.
Smiling Sam Alvey.
Brunson looks to take the smile off his face.
That's gonna be hard to do, because I have yet to see Alvey's smile be broken by anybody.
Now, Alvey's the one dating or married to that top model, right?
America's Next Top Model. You are correct.
There you go. So he's got some reason to smile.
He's got a permanent smile thanks to McKee Sullivan.
Yeah. Can't wipe that smile off if he tried.
No, and he's got plenty of reason to smile anyway, because he's won his last 3 fights by knockout.
Yeah, and another win here, I mean,
arguably
can't hurt him.
Puts him top 15. I think 4 in a row. And
maybe.
Derek Brunson is a super tough fighter. I mean, this is a guy who holds wins over Lorenz Larkin and Ed Herman, so he's no slouch.
It has to be a convincing win. I'm not gonna say put him in the top 15 if it's a decision fight.
I think if he wins by knockout or submission, then he could crack in. I'm not saying he launches himself into the rankings by a bullet. You know, I don't think it's that kind of fight, but I think right now with Derek Brunson sitting number 15, he can take 15 with a win.
I think it has to be decisive, but that's just me.
Honestly, Derek Brunson drops out with a loss, so Alvey gets that spot. That's all there is to it.
Alright, well, let's move on to Timothy Johnson and Jared Rosholt.
Yep, a heavyweight slobber knocker, as they would say. If you're a Sixer. probably not going to be a beautiful fight to watch. Might be bowling shoe ugly. How many more JR-isms can I sweep into the podcast here?
Boomer sooner.
Well, you know what? As a matter of fact, I'm sure he would probably appreciate that.
All right. I'm not saying it's a nothing fight. It has potential, as you said, A or B.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a C here. I don't think they're not going to meet in the middle.
No.
And if there is a C, I'll be very surprised.
The one thing he's got going for him here is wrestling, because he's an Oklahoma State wrestler. So if Rosholt wants to take it down, he will.
Oklahoma State, that's
not the Sooners, that's the Cowboys.
No. The Cowboys? Okay. I know they fight with your team there.
Yeah, well, we're not getting into that. I don't want to get into Big 12 politics. I'm just saying.
Big 12, thank you. That's what I was thinking of, yes.
No, I'm just saying that despite the fact that he's a wrestler, he doesn't wrestle everybody. He's actually slugged it out twice now in his 2 previous fights. He did it with Alexei Oleinik and he did it with Josh Copeland, and one time it worked out and one time it didn't.
Moving on, Chris Camozzi and Tom Watson. This fight could steal the show.
Wait a minute, you don't even want to know the odds for the previous 2 fights?
I'm assuming Alvey and I'll say Johnson are the favorites?
Brunson is a -390 favorite.
Whoa. Really?
Yes, indeed. Alvey is +320 on the comeback. And as for Dariush and Johnson, I don't think I mentioned that. It's almost dead even. +130 Dariush, -150 Johnson.
Yeah, Darush says I'll beat him everywhere, apparently.
Okay, well, when you make promises like that, you better live up to them.
Now, the Camozzi-Watson fight, I really think this could be like if there was a fight of the night bonus, this would get it. On paper.
Well, on paper, it's dead even, but quickly, Timothy Johnson is +190, Jared Rosholt -230. As for Tom Kong Watson and Chris Camozzi, this is another coin flip, +135 Watson, -155 for Camozzi.
Yeah, it's one of those fights if you have a strong feeling you can parlay into that, but we're not talking any odds breakers here.
No, indeed. But we should get Nick Kalikas or Brad Taschuk back on sometime soon.
Absolutely. Ray Borg and Gene Herrera.
Well,
why is this fight on the card? I mean, on this high of the card.
Well, Ray Borg is a pretty exciting flyweight. He's 8-1. His only loss was a split decision to Dustin Ortiz. So, if you're looking to make a name out of a guy and move somebody else up interesting into the flyweight rankings, into the upper area, I mean, he is number 14 right now. So, he probably needs to beat some bigger name guys, but at the same time, getting him in a featured fight on TV doesn't hurt him in any way.
I was surprised this fight's on the main card. I would have put one of the prelim fights in here. It's probably the fight you're not thinking of.
No, actually, I would go with either the McMahon-Nunez fight or the Frankie Saenz and Sirwan Kakai fight. One of those two.
Yeah, I would have put McMahon-Nunez up there instead. McMahon-Nunez, that's another fight that I'm really interested to see what happens. The Bangos Hall fight, Hall's got to win that one.
I feel like Hall's running up into a brick wall if he doesn't.
He needs to do a spin kick of doom on this guy.
I mean, he's not going to be cut because it'll only be his second loss, but
yeah,
this is up and down for this guy. You know, he lost 2, he won 3, and then he'd lose 2 again. That's pretty much the definition of going nowhere.
Willie Gates and Dustin Ortiz and Sirwan Kakai against Frankie Saenz wraps up the Fox Sports 2 prelim portion. There are 3 fights on the Fight Pass. There's one that catches my eye. I'm just curious. The Roman Salazar-Marlon Vera fight. Is Vera related to Brandon?
I really don't know. I don't believe so, but I don't have any evidence one way or the other.
Yeah, it's just sometimes with names, yes, I mean, Nurmagomedov, Miller, what have you, but sometimes you get like the cousin, the brother, whatever, so.
See, I'm more interested in the Willie Gates fight, to be completely honest with you.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Do you remember this guy just fought at the Ultimate Fighter finale? He was the opening fight on Fight Pass. In fact, he was the only fight on Fight Pass. He won in a minute and a half, and afterward he said, "Dana, give me the $50,000 bonus. I got 8 kids."
Oh, right. Did he get the bonus?
I don't believe he got the bonus that night. I believe the bonuses all went to, Thompson and Kamaru Usman and Masvidal and Salmon. I don't think he got one.
He probably forgot by the end of the show. Oh, right, that guy. Next time. I'll get the guy next time.
But that's an awful short notice, fight for him to come back on, and apparently he's filling in for an injured Ian McCall. Uncle Creepy was originally supposed to take this fight.
That's a shame.
Yeah, that is.
Alright, so we're gonna wait to see what happens if World Series does anything about Palhares, but
like I said, by the time you listen to this show, you'll probably know.
as far as other news, I mean, it's, there is some stuff here, but it's all about Palhares we've already touched on, really. Were you surprised that, going back to the Rousey fight, are you surprised that the fans were booing Correa and cheering Rousey?
No, I predicted this. Go back and listen to our show, man. I told you. Rousey,
I'm setting you up. I'm setting you up for this.
Yeah, Rousey is an international superstar now. She is the Michael Jordan of the women's bantamweights. She is that big and that popular.
Okay, besides Tate, what fight would you have Rousey fight? I mean, at what point does she say that's, it's me and everybody else? I mean, who do you put in front of her after Tate?
You've got some people that could work their way up the rankings to present interesting fights to her. I think Holly Holm, if she goes on a few fight win streak, that would be an interesting fight for Rousey, especially with her improved stand-up. Give her a boxer and let her try that stand-up with her.
Interesting to see that. We do have a fight announcement for the Fight Night 77 in Dublin. It's Cathal Pendred against Tom Breeze.
Well, Pendred's probably the least popular of the Irish contingent right now, so.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, he won a lot of fights that were close and that people thought he should have lost, so he'd probably better win this one in Dublin or he might be in trouble.
Now, going back to Rousey for a second, there's talk that she might be on the UFC 194 card at Dallas AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys play.
Yeah,
and they're looking to have McGregor as well.
Yeah, double header to fill that venue. They would have McGregor, Aldo, and Rousey and Tate, and that would probably pack the building. That would be a huge, huge show. Consider that both of these two pay-per-views, the McGregor pay-per-view and the Rousey pay-per-view, are believed to have done almost 1 million buys, and then put both of them defending their titles on the same show.
Well, it would be a unification fight for McGregor. Wouldn't be defending his title, but I see what you're saying.
Right, that's what I meant. But you know what I'm trying to say. Both of them defending a title on the same show. He'd be defending the interim title. Aldo would be defending the undisputed title.
Yeah. Well, yeah, unification. I think it's going to be a great fight. It has to happen. So, putting it in a big venue like AT&T Stadium, I mean, I've never been there. I've only seen Cowboys games really from there, but they've got the biggest, LED screen there.
Well,
it's
so
crazy.
So big that they actually had to change the rule for kickoffs.
Yeah. It's a problem when it's that big. It's like, we need to change something here.
Right. So, yeah, if it hits the scoreboard, you're allowed to re-kick. That's how big it freaking is. But I'll tell you, because I'm going to be there next year.
Stop kicking the screen.
Yeah, but either way, I intend to be there at WrestleMania, so.
Okay. More Ronda Rousey news. We talked about this off air. There's going to be a movie about her life.
Yep, based on the book My Fight, Your Fight. And she's going to star in the movie about her book.
Big surprise?
No, I mean, who else can you have play Ronda Rousey other than Ronda Rousey? But the reason it's a big deal right now is because so few people have ever actually done that. There's Muhammad Ali, there's Joe Louis, and there's Ronda Rousey. And that's your short list of people who've played themselves in movies about themselves.
Finally, it looks like we're gonna have a hearing with Anderson Silva and Nick Diaz, sorry.
Yeah, and Nick's got a lot to answer for aside from his other failings.
It's gonna happen August 13th, so we're gonna hear about it late next week. So
I'm expecting right now that I will probably end up watching it on Fight Pass and covering it. Nobody has asked me to yet, but I know how these things go. I know I'll be asked to do it.
Did you ever think you'd watch, like, commission hearings on the internet, like on a Fight Pass type of thing?
I guess in the march of technology, that sort of thing was inevitable, but I don't relish the opportunity, because if you hear me sighing, it's not because I resent being asked to cover it as a reporter. I resent how boring these meetings are. They are.
Yeah.
It's like if you've ever been to a city council meeting. That's
really?
what
You're gonna say that to me?
Well, you and I have both done it, so.
It's not for the easily bored.
No, you need to have like 3 cups of coffee before these things start, because they drone on and on and on. You know, they'll get to the second motion, they'll review the list of referees for an upcoming event. They'll get to the third motion, they'll ask a fighter to be there and he's not there. They'll move on to the fourth motion, and then they'll circle back to the second motion and the fighter's still not there, and they'll move on to the fifth motion. I'm not dogging the meetings. They need to do this to keep some structure to the sport and make these fighters accountable and to assign the officials for events. This is all procedurally necessary, but it's just like watching paint dry.
Mm-hmm. And one last note here on my list, and that's exclusively for Americans, because we don't have this here in Canada, but Carl's Jr. has tapped Ronda Rousey to be in the commercials.
When I was growing up, it was called Hardee's.
We don't have that either.
Well, they're the same chain. They're just called different things in different places.
Like, we just got Five Guys, Stevie. Come on now.
I know, but yeah, they pretty much do raunchy burger ads anyway, so having Ronda Rousey be in a sexy ad for Carl's Jr. really isn't a stretch. Like, you won't see this commercial because you said yourself you don't have them in Canada, but they have this woman with obviously fake tatas talking about how she likes everything natural, and she's eating a Carl's Jr. burger that's like grass prairie fed beef and, you know, organic lettuce and everything. It's billed as the world's first all-natural hamburger, which
I've seen that commercial, and I've seen the new relaunched KFC guy.
That new relaunched KFC guy is creepy.
Is the girl in Carl's Jr. right now, is it Kate Upton?
It might be. I don't really know.
Okay, I know she's in some commercial, but I think it's that game that Conor McGregor's also.
You know what? My wife has started to notice Conor McGregor in those commercials now. She's caught on. I mean, she went with me and watched the UFC where he beat Chad Money Mendez, so she kind of knows who he is now. And so when she sees those commercials, she looks at me and goes, "This is war." She can actually do it now.
Alright.
So yeah, that's why Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey are mainstream and big deals, and why putting them on the same card would be huge, because they are in the public consciousness now.
Oh. But you want to follow us under big surprise, Stevie? Ray Sefo has just announced that Palhares has been stripped of his belt and suspended indefinitely.
Okay, well, that's breaking news to close the show.
There you go. For Stevie J, I'm Peter H, the Hardcore Canadian. Thanks for listening, and as I always say, never leave it to the judges. Good night, everybody.
Who wants a KO for Christmas?
And remember, if you like what you hear on Glove Up or Shut Up, you can show your support by liking us on Facebook, tinyurl.com/GloveUp. You can follow us on Twitter @HardcoreCDN and @AngryMarks.
You're listening to Glove Up or Shut Up on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.